Hey everyone, and welcome back to the EMT Spot's Blood Pressure Podcast. I'm Samuel Harrison, and I am so pumped for today's deep dive. We are talking about something that honestly kind of blew my mind.
Yeah, it's a connection a lot of people really don't expect. We're talking about high blood pressure and what it can do to your bone health.
You're listening to Olivia Harper, our bone health expert. And you heard right, folks, blood pressure and bones. Olivia, break this down for me. I always thought high blood pressure was all about, like, your heart, your arteries. What does that have to do with osteoporosis?
It's a fascinating link. It really shows you how all the different systems in your body are connected. But first, let's do a super quick recap on osteoporosis itself. I'm sure you know it weakens your bones and makes them easier to fracture, and it's often associated with aging, especially in women after menopause.
Right, like my grandmother. She always told me to drink my milk so I wouldn't end up with brittle bones like hers. But this connection to blood pressure that's new to me.
Well, think of it this way. Anyone can develop osteoporosis. And more research is showing that high blood pressure might actually speed that process up, even in younger people. That's where this new study on mice comes in. It really grabbed our attention because it highlighted this connection so well.
Okay, so mice. We're talking Mickey Mouse here, or is this like serious lab stuff?
Oh, this is serious lab stuff. Researchers looked at 3 groups of mice. Young mice with high blood pressure, they induced it. Older mice with the same condition. And then your standard control groups for both ages. Just to be clear, induced means that they used medication to temporarily raise blood pressure in these mice to mimic what happens with chronic high blood pressure in humans.
Got it. So what happened to these little guys? Did their bones like turn to dust or something?
Not quite dust.
Yeah.
But the results in the younger mice with high blood pressure were pretty alarming. Their bone volume decreased by a huge amount, like 24%. Imagine almost a quarter of your bone just disappearing.
Whoa. That's a lot.
Uh,
And I'm guessing that's not good news for their overall bone strength either.
You guessed right. It gets worse. The inner spongy part of their bone. You can think of it like a honeycomb structure. It gives your bones flexibility and strength. Well, that thinned out by 18%. And on top of that, their bones' ability to withstand force plummeted by 34%, making fractures way more likely.
So basically their bones were aging way faster than they should have been, all because of high blood pressure. That's wild. But hold on, you said they also looked at older mice with high blood pressure. What happened to them?
That's where it gets really interesting, and honestly a bit puzzling. The older mice with induced high blood pressure didn't show nearly as much bone deterioration. It was almost like their bones had already gone through the worst of it with natural aging.
So the younger mice got hit harder by high blood pressure than the older mice? You're telling me high blood pressure might mess with your bones more when you're younger. That just seems backwards.
It does, doesn't it? One of the researchers actually said that having high blood pressure at a younger age seemed to age the bones as if they were 25 years older. That's a pretty big statement.
25 years.
Yeah.
I'm officially freaked out now.
Yeah.
But what's the deal here? Why would high blood pressure even affect bones in the first place? I thought it was a heart thing.
Right, and it is. But remember how I said everything in our bodies is connected? Well, a big part of this connection seems to be inflammation. High blood pressure is considered an inflammatory disease. And guess what? The natural aging process also triggers inflammation. So you have these two processes, high blood pressure and aging, both stirring up inflammation. And that's where the trouble starts for your bones.
Okay, so inflammation is the bad guy here. But how does it actually mess with our bones?
Think of it like this. Your bones are constantly being remodeled. Old bone breaks down and new bone is built up. It's a delicate balance. But when you have high blood pressure and inflammation in the mix, that balance gets disrupted. It's like throwing a wrench into a well-oiled machine. The breakdown process speeds up and the building process can't keep up. Result: weaker, more fragile bones.
Ah, I see. So it's like inflammation is constantly chipping away at your bone's bank account, and eventually you end up bankrupt bone-wise.
Yeah.
That's a pretty powerful image.
Exactly. And there are a few theories about the specifics. One thought is that high blood pressure alters blood flow to your bone marrow and bones themselves. And this triggers inflammatory responses that basically damage the bone tissue.
So it's not just about the heart and arteries. High blood pressure is messing with the infrastructure of our bones, too.
Precisely. And there's actually some evidence that certain medications used to treat high blood pressure also seem to reduce fracture risk, which further supports this connection.
Okay, so managing blood pressure isn't just about preventing heart attacks. It could be about protecting our skeletons, too. This is getting more and more interesting. Olivia, what else have you got for us?
Well, we've talked a lot about how high blood pressure could be bad for your bones. But you might be wondering, are there any good things? Any benefits or ways that high blood pressure could actually protect your bones?
That's a great question. It seems a little counterintuitive, but maybe a little bit of pressure keeps things strong. Like how lifting weights builds muscle.
That's an interesting analogy. But with blood pressure and bones, it's not that simple. Some studies have suggested a possible U-shaped relationship between blood pressure and bone density. What that means is both very low and very high blood pressure could be bad for bone health. It's like there's this sweet spot, a Goldilocks zone for blood pressure when it comes to your
So not
bones.
too high, not too low. Got to get it just right. Makes sense. But is that for sure, or are we still trying to figure things out?
Honestly, we're still putting the pieces together. We need more research to really understand how this relationship works and to confirm if this U-shaped connection is really true.
Okay, so more to learn. But this whole mouse study thing, how much does that really apply to us humans? I mean, mice aren't exactly known for their big, strong skeletons.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Animal studies like this are really valuable. They give us clues and help us understand the basic mechanisms of how things work. But you're right, we can't just assume these findings apply directly to humans. What works for Mickey might not work for you and me.
So we need more research on actual people to know for sure.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, is there anything else that points to this connection between high blood pressure and bone problems in humans?
Absolutely. This mouse study actually supports a lot of studies in humans. These studies have shown a pretty clear link between high blood pressure and osteoporosis.
Okay, give me an example. What are they seeing in people?
Well, there was this study in China with over 2,000 women. All of them had gone through menopause. And they found a strong correlation between hypertension, that's just a fancy word for high blood pressure, and osteoporosis.
So it's not just happening in mice, they're seeing it in real people too. That's pretty convincing.
Right, and there are other studies too. A study from 2021 found that women with osteoporosis were more likely to have high blood pressure.
More evidence piling up. It's like these two conditions are partners in crime, even if we don't know exactly how they're working together yet.
Exactly. And there's even a study from 2020 that found high blood pressure can actually hurt bone marrow density in patients. Remember, bone marrow is where a lot of the important stuff happens when it comes to building bones. So that's another big piece of the puzzle.
Wow, so high blood pressure is messing with the factories that make our bones. It's getting pretty hard to ignore this connection.
It really is. So I think the big takeaway for our listeners today is this. High blood pressure is serious business. We all know it's bad for your heart, but you need to take it seriously for your bones too.
And that means taking steps to manage it, right?
Exactly. Managing your blood pressure isn't just about preventing heart attacks, it's about protecting your whole body, your skeleton too.
It's like a full body health upgrade. I like the sound of that. But how do we actually do it? What can people do to get their blood pressure under control?
Well, that's a topic for a whole other deep dive. But in a nutshell, we're talking about healthy lifestyle choices. Things like regular exercise, a balanced diet, watching your salt intake, and finding healthy ways to manage stress. And of course, if you're on medication, follow your doctor's instructions.
Sounds like solid advice. Olivia, this has been a really eye-opening conversation. I had no idea high blood pressure could be such a problem for your bones. What are your final words of wisdom for our listeners today?
I think the biggest takeaway is to be proactive. If you're worried about your blood pressure or your bone health, don't wait. Talk to your doctor. They can help you understand your risks, figure out if you need any tests, and come up with a plan to keep both your heart and your bones healthy and strong.
So it really all comes back to taking care of yourself, right?
Yeah.
The more you know, the better you can take care of yourself.
Exactly.
Well, this has been a seriously eye-opening deep dive into high blood pressure and osteoporosis. I feel like I'm walking away with a whole new perspective.
Me too.
Yeah.
It really shows you how complex our bodies are and how things you might think are totally separate are actually working together. Sometimes for better and sometimes for worse.
So for our listeners out there, maybe some of them are a little worried now about their blood pressure or their bone health. What's the best thing they can do?
Honestly, the best thing is to talk to your doctor. Seriously, they're there to help. They can look at your risk factors, see if you need any screenings, and guide you on the best way to manage your health, whatever that looks like for you.
Great advice. Prevention and early intervention. Those are always the best ways to go.
Absolutely. And remember, even small changes to your lifestyle can make a big difference in the long run.
Well said. Olivia, this has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for breaking it all down for us.
It was my pleasure, Samuel. I'm always happy to talk about this kind of stuff.
And to all of our listeners out there, thank you for tuning in to the EMT-Spot's Blood Pressure Podcast. I'm Samuel Harrison.
And I'm Olivia Hart.
Be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share this episode with anyone who might find it helpful. And as always, stay tuned for more deep dives into the world of blood pressure and beyond.